about this isn't about preference. This isn't about labels. This is about power. Because when Freddy P finally started talking, what spilled out wasn't a confession, it was a pattern. A pattern of control, of silence, of fear, and of people being put in positions where saying no was never really an option. This story doesn't start in a bedroom. It starts in rooms where careers were decided, where access was currency, and where the wrong reaction could end everything. Freddy P isn't saying what people want him to say. He's saying something far more disturbing. That choosing men wasn't about attraction. It was about control being easier. And once you hear how it unfolds, you can't unhear it. From the outside, it always looked glamorous. Fame, success, mentorship, opportunity. But behind that shine, Freddy says something darker was always present. Manipulation disguised as guidance. Authority masked as generosity. And it begins with control over young talent.
That makes sense, bro. Now it makes sense as to why you act like this. Before, we couldn't understand. You got all the money in the world. Women find you attractive. What's wrong? And had this never came out, it would have been on the assumptions. But any doctor, any therapist, you can see it a mile away. It's a little man complex. You want to control. He got to control you because...
That sentence changes everything. Not desire, not curiosity, control. Freddy P doesn't hesitate. He says the pattern was always visible. Money, fear, access, silence. He paints a picture where wealth doesn't create confidence. It compensates for the lack of it. According to him, the need to dominate didn't come from indulgence. It came from insecurity so deep, it demanded obedience. And once obedience becomes the goal, the choice of partner changes. Because women, according to Freddy's claims, were never predictable enough. Women questioned, women compared, women reacted. And reaction to a man obsessed with control is dangerous.
If your woman cheat on you, if you a big man and your woman cheat on you, you're insecure. Because now you want to know why she cheated on you and you're big. You can satisfy her. It's because there's always somebody out there bigger.
This is where Freddy P pivots the narrative. He claims this wasn't about being rejected, it was about being exposed. Women, he suggests, had the power to remind powerful men that money doesn't erase comparison. That dominance can be challenged, that validation can be withheld. And for someone obsessed with authority, that was unacceptable. So according to Freddy P, the solution wasn't to chase affection, it was to remove resistance. Because resistance breaks illusions. Freddy describes a psychology where money doesn't just buy luxury, it buys silence, it buys compliance, it buys people who can't afford to say no, and that's where the shift begins.
Puffy felt from the beginning of time that he started having sex that he wasn't able to please a woman, right? So Puffy probably ran trains with women and seeing the reaction that they give his homeboys.
This is one of the most explosive claims in the entire transcript. Freddy P alleges that comparison, not preference, sparked the obsession with dominance. He claims Diddy witnessed reactions he couldn't control, moments where attention drifted, moments where power slipped. And according to Freddy, that realization doesn't humble someone like that. It radicalizes them. Because if money can't guarantee admiration, then fear has to replace it. Freddy frames this as the moment when pleasure stopped being the goal. Control became the currency. And once control becomes the objective, the choice of who you surround yourself with becomes strategic.
Because without the money, man, you probably ain't got no bitch. You can't keep a bitch. You can't tell a bitch. You can't get a bitch to go get you a glass of water from the fridge without that money. You can't raise your voice without that money.
That line is chilling. Freddy P isn't describing wealth, he's describing leverage. According to him, money wasn't used to impress, it was used to silence, used to dominate rooms, used to decide who speaks and who disappears. And here's where the gossip narrative sharpens. Freddy suggests that when power is built on money alone, the people closest to you are never equals. They're dependents, and dependents don't challenge authority.
So most women, to stay loyal to their husband, they bring toys and everything inside the bedroom, this and that. But you're just not satisfying, man. You just don't satisfy. He can't satisfy a woman.
This is where Freddy draws the line that fuels the title. He claims women weren't chosen because women couldn't be managed. Women, he says, had expectations, boundaries, voices, and voices threatened control. So according to Freddy P, the alleged shift wasn't about attraction. It was about environment. An environment where dominance went unchallenged, where silence was guaranteed, where reactions could be controlled.
That's probably why probably sparked this interest in men because with men, he could be as dominant, he could get that reaction. You know how
This is the core of the allegation. Freddy P claims this wasn't desire, it was strategy. He alleges men, especially young, powerless, or dependent men, were easier to dominate, easier to intimidate, easier to silence. And in the gossip framing, this is where the industry's silence becomes suspicious. Because if dominance was the real objective, then everyone who stayed quiet wasn't just passive, they were complicit. Freddy paints a world where people didn't ask questions because questions had consequences, and consequences were expensive. But Freddy doesn't stop there. He pushes the theory into darker territory, into rumors that have haunted the industry for years. He claims control thrives where resistance is weakest, and that's when the conversation turns disturbing.
So what Puffy do is he can't smash. So he gotta go to the butthole, the fresh butthole, or go to a baby, right? Or teenagers, which he's been accused of, right? So it made sense to why he tried to catch them young, try to catch the boys young.
These are claims, not conclusions, but they are claims that explain why so many people looked away. Freddy P isn't presenting proof, he's presenting pattern, a pattern of fear, a pattern of silence, a pattern of people who knew too much and said nothing. And in gossip culture, pattern is everything. Because patterns don't lie, they repeat. According to Freddy, money couldn't buy loyalty forever. Sex couldn't buy silence forever. Eventually, power had to escalate. And when it did, the industry chose comfort over confrontation. This isn't a story about orientation. It's a story about control, about what happens when power goes unchecked, when silence becomes currency, when fear becomes policy. And this is only the beginning, because if Freddy P is telling the truth, even partially, then the biggest secret wasn't what happened behind closed doors. It was who knew and did nothing. By the time Freddy P reaches the end of his explanation, the story stops feeling like speculation and starts feeling like a pattern no one wanted to interrupt. Because according to him, this wasn't a secret that stayed hidden by accident. It stayed hidden because too many people benefited from staying quiet. This is where the narrative widens, from one man's alleged behavior to an entire system that looked the other way. Freddy doesn't describe chaos, he describes structure. A structure where money creates dependence, where dependence creates obedience, and where obedience creates silence. In that world, power isn't loud, it's implied. And the most dangerous part? Everyone knows the rules without them ever being spoken. Freddy suggests the industry didn't need instructions. They learned by watching who survived and who vanished. People didn't ask questions because questions weren't unanswered. They were punished. Careers stalled. Invitations stopped. Phones went quiet. And in gossip culture, silence is never empty. It's intentional. Freddy's framing shifts again here. He starts describing relationships not as partnerships, but as transactions. According to him, money wasn't just leverage in private moments. It was leverage in entire lives. Who gets protection? Who gets exposure? Who gets erased? And once someone controls access to success, resistance becomes expensive. This is why in Freddy's telling, domination wasn't limited to bedrooms. It bled into careers, friendships, reputations. And that's when he makes one of his quietest but most unsettling points. He suggests that the people closest weren't chosen for loyalty. They were chosen for vulnerability. Vulnerability is easy to manage. Youth, ambition, desperation. Freddy implies those traits mattered more than attraction. Because someone with nothing to lose is dangerous. Someone with everything to gain is controllable. And in gossip framing, this reframes everything people thought they knew. The parties weren't celebrations. They were filters. Who complies? Who stays quiet? Who understands the unspoken rules? Freddy hints that the industry didn't just attend these spaces. They learned from them. Learned what silence costs. Learned what defiance brings. And over time, silence became culture. He also points out something even darker. According to Freddy, the illusion of choice was the most effective weapon. People believed they were choosing comfort, choosing access, choosing opportunity. But when opportunity is conditional, choice is an illusion. Freddy frames this as psychological dominance, not physical. The fear of losing everything keeps people compliant long before force is ever needed. And that's why, he suggests, rumors never fully surfaced. Because rumors require voices, and voices were conditioned to whisper or not speak at all. This is where the gossip lens sharpens. Because if even a fraction of what Freddy P alleges says is true, then the most disturbing part isn't the behavior, it's the audience. The people who saw patterns forming and called them coincidences. The people who heard stories and dismissed them as jealousy. The people who benefited too much to intervene. Freddy isn't asking anyone to believe him blindly. He's asking one question. If this was all nonsense, why did so many people stay afraid? Fear doesn't spread without cause. And according to him, fear was everywhere. The narrative circles back to women here, but not in the way people expect. Freddy suggests women weren't excluded out of preference. They were excluded because women had exit power. They could leave, speak, expose, and exposure is the enemy of control. Men in dependent positions, he claims, didn't have that luxury. Leaving meant losing everything. Speaking meant being erased. And that imbalance, Freddy suggests, explains the alleged pattern better than any rumor about desire. This was never about who someone wanted. It was about who couldn't say no. Freddy also hints at why stories began leaking now, not earlier. Because time erodes power. Money still matters, but fear weakens when influence fades. And once people feel safer speaking than staying silent, narratives shift. What was once dismissed as gossip becomes allegations. What was once nobody knows becomes everybody heard. And when that happens, the industry scrambles, not to correct wrongs, but to control damage. Freddy implies that the panic isn't about truth, it's about timing, because timing decides who controls the story. This is where the title finally lands with full force. Freddy P isn't saying this was about preference, he's saying preference was a cover, a distraction that kept the conversation shallow, because debating attraction is safer than questioning power, and power is the one topic nobody wanted examined. In the end, Freddy leaves listeners with an uncomfortable reality. If dominance was normalized behind closed doors, then it didn't survive alone. It required silence, protection, participation. And once systems protect behavior long enough, they stop recognizing it as wrong. They call it industry business, private life, none of our concern, until the silence breaks. And when it does, the shock isn't what happened, it's how long everyone lived with it. This story isn't finished, because gossip doesn't end when allegations surface. It ends when silence does. And according to Freddy P, silence was never accidental. It was bought, maintained, enforced. Which raises one final question that lingers long after the clip ends. If this was all lies, why did it take so long for anyone to speak up?